It was New Year's Eve, and he was supposed to go to a party with actually his cousins, and they were going to go to some of the local kids that he had gone to high school with. There was a party out here in Westbrook. Really nice kids. And he worked New Year's Eve day, and he was dropped off at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, and it's hard to talk about. He was paid two $20 bills, $40 for the work he did that morning. He had two $20 bills, and he went upstairs to his apartment. And he actually didn't go in his apartment. He went in his friend's apartment, or room, in the front of the house, because his friend said he was going away for the New Year's Eve weekend or holiday, whatever, and that he would leave him the key to his room because he had a PlayStation 4, or he was in his friend's apartment, and he was sitting in a chair, and he drank what appears he drank a high gravity beer. His cousin, same age, he was going to come pick him up for this New Year's Eve party. We called him and called him and called him, and no answer. And I called him. I always call my kids on New Year's Eve, midnight. New Year's Eve, I love you, we're going to have a great year. So I called Kevin, and Happy New Year, and no answer, just left him a voicemail. I called him on New Year's Day and left him a voicemail and said, Kevin, I would have loved to have had, a Happy New Year's, Mom, but I didn't hear from you. Please give me a call. His friend found him when he came home from Canada. And there was heroin. Kevin was in his apartment. It was New Year's Eve. Kevin had done heroin, according to his cousins, and they weren't trying to spare my feelings because it took them until August to tell me this. He had tried it twice and didn't like it, according to his cousins, and another kiddo too that just said he didn't like it. It wasn't, his thing. Okay. Well, there was this heroin sitting there, and I'm just assuming that he said, "Why not? That's New Year's Eve," and that was his third time. And those two $20 bills were rolled up. And there was a line or the remnants of a line of pure heroin. That heroin hadn't been cut with anything. It was pure. He snorted it. And then he died. He died about 2:30 on New Year's Day. The man who lived on the second floor said, I didn't hear anybody coming or going, but I heard someone snoring really loud. Well, that was Kevin, losing his life. So Kevin sat there from 2:30, 3 o'clock, until found him the next night. And so for him to find Kevin, who had been dead for 30 hours, was not a pretty sight. And so I read the coroner's thing and the police report, and to hear your own child described in that manner, about the foam coming out of his mouth, and his head over here, and he was still sitting in that chair. And the people that went in there before they called 911, it was obvious Kevin had passed away. Before they called 911, they called the drug dealer to come and get your stuff as they walked around Kevin's body. This was a good friend. Kevin went to the funeral home, his dad went to see him. I couldn't do that. He was my handsome boy, and it wouldn't have done any good for me to see him like that. And I asked where Kevin was downstairs, and he said, he's right over here. And I just kneeled on that part of the floor, and I talked with him and said, everything a mother could say. And we had a big, wake. We could have those in those days. We had a big wake, and thank God, because the outpouring of love, the funny stories about Kevin, who was a funny kid. He was funny, and we were a funny family. We loved to laugh. That was incredible. And then the funeral, Kevin was cremated. And that's an awful weird. That was it.